Hello ladies and germs, let's get ready to do a King's Game rant. Something I'm sure a lot of you don't know is that, including me doing my physical reviews in person here, my video reviews, I also do written reviews, typed up reviews on myanimelist.net, and I might also do an anime analysis every now and then on hubpages.com. But pertaining to King's Game, I did a written review for it, and that is also on myanimelist.net under Mr87, and I'll post a link to that in the description, so if you want to check that out also, you can. Of course, because it's a rant, the verbiage I'm going to use now is not going to be the same that I use inside that review. So if you want to get another perspective of this, then you can also look there also. But enough about that. What you want to know is my honest opinion on King's Game. And my honest opinion on King's Game is I kind of did like the anime. On myanimelist.net, I gave it a 7. I don't think it is definitely far from the best horror anime I've ever seen. But for everyone saying it's absolute garbage that needs to be pushed off the side of a building after you cut it to pieces and you bind it up to make sure it can't escape and it's dropped, I definitely disagree with those opinions. I think that King's Game honestly does a lot of things right that a lot of anime should learn from, but of course, naturally, there's a lot of things it does wrong too, but a lot of people tend to be pointing out the stuff that it does wrong over the things it does right, thinking that it's an absolutely terrible anime. And I'm here to tell you my personal opinion. It's not a horrible anime. I've seen far worse anime where it seemed like the people put far less energy into it and trying to work on it. And by looking at King's Game, I think the people working on it were it felt like they were kind of novices when they were doing it, but I could see they at least put forth some effort into making a horror anime with these characters in this predicament and them trying to do the best they can in order to get out this predicament. They did the best they could in order to portray a horror show or a horror movie in the anime medium, and I'll congratulate them for that. But of course, there are a lot of things they could work on naturally. Okay, let's go ahead and get off my chest. Of course, the things that everyone agrees on are terrible about the King's Game anime. Of course, the characters are dumb, as you would expect to see in most horror shows or horror movies. The characters are absolutely retarded. Most people in those situations would not respond the way they did. Nobody called the cops. Nobody tried to get really any parents involved. It felt like the only people in this world were these kids dealing with this situation. There was no outside news about there was stuff in the newspaper about the kids dying in the previous King's Game, and also about the first King's Game. There was stuff on the internet about what happened in the first King's Game. Of course, none of the news outlets knew that it was a King's Game. They just knew that all these people died in this incident, and then they died in this incident. Whether it was a government cover-up, we don't know. Maybe the next season King's Game will go into it, we don't know. But it felt like the story was too inclusive with just the characters involved, and because no one else was involved, that helped hurt the realism of the story. And branching off of that, of course, the world building in King's Game is absolutely horrendous. All you know is that by the end of the series, as most of you known, if you suffer through that aspect of it, not suffer through it because I don't think it's terrible, but you suffer through that aspect of it, then you'll realize that you don't find out what ends up happening by the end with the King's Game. You don't know who's behind the King's Game or who created it. All you know is it started in this town somewhere with these messages on piece and envelopes that were sent to this village, and then from there it ends up mutating into a virus that gets on cell phones. You don't know if the virus is just automatically, just like all viruses, if it's just trying to destroy humanity. But then there's a question of how the virus gains sentience, and why does it choose the people that it does? How does it spread? The show doesn't cover any of this. And it doesn't branch beyond what these kids are going through in it. So the world building is terrible, and the characters are pretty dumb. So take into account with that, and because of that, there, of course, you can guess there are a lot of plot holes in the story. So taking this into account, what could possibly be good? What could the saving grace, in my opinion, be on this anime? The pacing. The pacing of King's Game is superb. I don't care if anyone says the pacing in King's Game is bad, then I really would look at their opinion as thinking that they're suffering from the School Days effect, where they didn't like the way the anime went, so they're saying that they didn't like anything about it, because the pacing in King's Game is great. While, as I explained inside of my review, as the main story is moving along, you have flashbacks to the previous story, the highlights of the previous story, so that there's never a dull moment inside of this anime. It feels like, in a sense, it feels like in every episode of King's Game, you have something happening. There's something going on in every episode. You're just not sitting there like, nothing happened in this episode. Wow. You're never sitting like that. And there's a lot of shows that are like that. Like, I'll even say notoriously one of the greatest heralded shows of the century, Steins Gate, starts off extremely slow. Honestly, I might have been tempted to put down Steins Gate if it wasn't the hype that I heard about how the show eventually gets good, because for the first few episodes of that show, nothing really happens. It's just characters talking. It's just the characters, like, it's basically just a slice of life when you're expecting all this crazy sci-fi antics and adventures to happen. But the beginning of Steins Gate is essentially slice of life. Then eventually it really is slice of life and info dumping. Then eventually kicks off in the high gear with everything else. But King's Game gets off strong from the bat. You got the loner kid, you got him being distant, then you have the characters like beating them up, and you have them starting to die episode 1, and then it just keeps on picking up and the characters keep on dropping off. So if I was to say one of the biggest saving graces of the show is the pacing of King's Game, and I think a lot of shows might want to incorporate that method, or even if you got a bunch of people that get confused by the way the pacing is, you could at least learn from it in a way where your pacing should be like Code Geass pacing, where every episode you should have something happen. Or like most Gundam series pacing, you can have some downtime in an episode, but you should always have an episode should be a kind of a complete entity in itself, where you should always have something happen in an episode to keep your fans glued to the story and what's happening. And by that, I don't mean a bunch of action or butt kicking. You can just have like some type of development or some type of strategy or something being worked out in that episode. But if I want to watch a slice of life, I'll watch a slice of life. If I want to watch a sci-fi anime with a lot of craziness going on, then I want to watch that. And with King's Game, I wanted to watch a horror anime where you got a bunch of sheep that are being taken out by some type of entity and them trying to brain their way out of it. And in King's Game, I got that. Whoa, the emotion was intense to that, wasn't it? Okay, in any case, alright, so that's with the pacing, one strong point. The second strong point about it is to me, the characters. Not the way the characters are, but the way the characters reacted to the events that were going on. When the characters were being tormented by what's happening, you had friends that were being threatened, you had boyfriends, you had girlfriends that were being threatened by either them dying or them having to do something crazy with someone someone like sleeping, having sex with somebody else in order to not die. And I thought the reactions from the characters were in this, and when you consider the inclusive world that we're stuck in, unfortunately, the reactions from the characters were genuine. And I really did appreciate that, even though I did think, of course, the way the deaths are ridiculous. They could have toned that down a little bit. Even certain points, I will be very sad. But then how extravagant the death was concerning the character, I would honestly be laughing a little bit. Even despite that, though, I still felt the emotion when the protagonist, I can't remember the names right now, but I felt the emotion when the protagonist had to get his girlfriend in order to sleep with his best friend to save his best friend's life, because he really didn't want his best friend to die. I really felt the emotion when the first flashback, we have a guy and his girlfriend has to sleep with someone else in order for her not to die, and in the end his girlfriend does sleep with him, and he gets so mad he's not thinking, and he thinks it's not going to be that serious, so he tells that guy to die, and then that guy ends up dying after the protagonist and his best friend spend a whole night trying to save him. I really felt the emotion for those characters. I even felt for the psycho chick. I even felt for her and how everything she went through, and how she believed that the only thing, based off her experiences, the only thing you could do in the King's game is survive. There was no trying to save anybody, and that's how she accepted things. So that's how she played the game, despite how much I hated her and how much of a jerk she was. Couldn't stand her, but I still got where she was coming from. I felt the emotion behind that. From the beginning of the anime to its very tragic conclusion, I really did feel for the characters. I thought and I did watch the dub, and I really felt for them and for their predicament. I thought that the voice actors were really trying to portray that. And I felt that the people that made the anime were really trying to portray that too. They just weren't slapping something together. They were really trying to make an emotional, horrifying story. So the way the characters interact to the situation, I thought that, other than them, of course, not calling the police or anything, other than things being so inclusive, I thought it was pretty realistic and portrayed pretty well, and it got my emotions going concerning their predicament. So that's number 2 on what King's Game did extremely well. And I guess that's probably about it on King's Game. We all know what it did terribly, but it also has a lot of strengths too. And I think the biggest lesson we can take from this anime is, and a lesson I took from it is, don't let people dissuade you from looking at something that you might be interested in. I remember for a while when King's Game came out, I honestly didn't watch it for a long time because there were so many negative reviews about it. I thought it should just be something I should just skip. But with my love of rock music, with the rockin' opening, and how it was a horror anime that portrayed some characters in a horrifying situation, a lot of holes in it, but it still basically did what I was looking for in a horror show, and it could have did it better, but it did it well enough. And I'm glad that I finally got to a point where I sat down and watched this and didn't let all the negative press dissuade me from it. Which is why we do it miss reviews. With my review, I try and tell you objectively what an anime does well and what it does bad, and let you decide on whether you want to watch it or not. And then with my rant, if you want to know my honest, subjective input, then you'll get that. But that's the reason why we started this channel in the first place, is to try the best we can to be objective and inform you about these shows, as opposed to just saying this show sucks, spit on it, or this show is great, watch it and let's market it without getting any money for it. Let's go ahead and market this up the Yahuza. So yeah, my personal recommendation, if you're into horror anime and you're not looking for anything that deep, if you're basically looking for something a bit like Mirai Nikki, but a little less fantastical, then I would definitely recommend looking at King's Game. But if you're looking for something extremely deep, something very thought-provoking, something that's more complete, then don't take a look at King's Game right now. Maybe you'd rather look at another, or maybe you'd rather look at Shiki or When the Cicadas Cry. But if you're going down the Mirai Nikki, the Corpse Party, or those type of routes of anime, then King's Game will be up your alley. Hope you enjoy my rant video. If you want to see more of what we have to offer in Mist Reviews, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And I think I'm also going to do a video on the School Days effect to go deeply into what I think of it and how I think it's really hurting the anime community. And the School Days effect is nothing new to anime. There's probably more technical name for it somewhere else where it originated in another type of medium. But for anime, I call it the School Days effect because I think School Days was the strongest example of a show that in my opinion, wasn't bad at all, and was extremely original. And just because people were so shocked by the way it ended and they were getting whiplash by it, everyone said that they hated and despised it. So I think I am going to do a video eventually on an in-depth analysis of the School Days effect, and eventually I'll get around to doing a review and a rant of School Days too. So again, thank you for taking a look at my video today, and take care. Bye.